Good morning, my friends, this is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for the Nintendo Switch, which is actually the second time this has been remade, but yet they chose to get rid of the DX moniker that they put on the Game Boy Color remake. But then again, most of the changes in that game were just a new dungeon, a new building, and the whole game is in color. This time, they've basically taken the game from the ground up and optimized it to run in HD and get over the limitations of the Game Boy hardware. Mostly. I'm afraid that this review is going to be mostly rather negative, so I'm going to try my best to keep my temper in check. But if you're a Link's Awakening purist and you just don't like people talking bad about your favorite Zelda game, this might be your cue to turn around and watch another video. However, if you're willing to hear me out, you might discover this game in a bit of a new light, and hopefully you're also just a rational human being that likes to hear other people's opinions and doesn't just think that yours is the only one. Anyway, I hated this game. I thought it was a very poorly designed Zelda game that while the remake made it look and sound much, much prettier, it wasn't that much fun to play and caused way more frustrations than actual enjoyment. Now, I did start enjoying myself a lot when the game had a trading sequence, and also once I got to the Eagle's Tower. However, besides that, it felt kind of like what I thought about my Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee reviews, where I thought they looked and sounded nice, but otherwise they felt like they were still on the Game Boy, but just with better graphics. And that's basically what I have to say about this. Now, in fairness, I did watch GamexPlain's Big Changes videos from the original, so I could appreciate how far this has come since the Game Boy, but yet I feel like in my case it didn't go far enough. Basically, the summary of the game is that if you haven't played a Zelda game before, you travel around this giant overworld, in this case a singular island, which is actually not in Hyrule, it's Koholint Island. And you have to find dungeons, which are basically chambers underground or overground in the case of the tower. And you have to find the 8 instruments of the sirens so that you can wake up the windfish, and then you can leave the island. Because you don't want to be stuck in Koholint the whole time, you want to get back to Hyrule so that you can do Breath of the Wild, right? Well, unfortunately, that's where the game just seems to drag on and on. These have to be some of the most boring dungeons I have ever seen in a Zelda game. Now, granted, I didn't really play all that much of the original, so a lot of my opinions here are based on just playing the game as a game, and overall I found the dungeon design to be incredibly weak, with the best, by far, being the Eagle's Tower, but even then that was just okay. It wasn't exactly mind-blowing or Stone Tower Temple levels of awesome. It felt like the majority of the puzzles that were solved were along the lines of either defeat every enemy in the room, push a block a certain way, or, in a particularly egregious example, throw a pot at a door. Yeah, this game had some really obtuse puzzle solving, which while they did tweak it a little bit from the original Game Boy version, some of the puzzles they just decided to keep in. Like, for example, puzzles where you'd have to throw chess pieces. It's like, wait, what? Why are you throwing chess pieces? What kind of logic is that? Or when you have the signpost maze and you have to walk through a field in the exact order that the signs tell you, even though it's a square field. I feel like this game just takes a lot of liberties and doesn't go in depth about why it's allowed to work. Now, granted, this is kind of a weird Zelda game to begin with. Like, you see a lot of cameos from Mario games, and there's also a Kirby enemy in one dungeon, and Dr. Wright from the SNES version of SimCity also shows up. But apart from that, this game just felt obnoxious. For one, this has to be the slowest Link I have ever controlled, and it was even worse in handheld mode, because when I played with the GameCube controller, the game worked fine. I do wish Link walks ever so slightly faster, considering how quickly he sprinted around on the NES. But in handheld mode, maybe it's just that my Joy-Con was broken, but it felt like whenever Link tried to move to the left, he would always screech to a halt, or like there would be random times where he'd just start moving slower for some bizarre reason. Of course, the trade-off to this is that there are actually no screen transitions except when you're in the dungeons. So the overworld is just one seamless giant screen that just keeps scrolling, which is really nice, and it really highlights the amazing lighting, water, and fire effects in particular. This is definitely a very good-looking game, and while I would say that it sounds good, sometimes that also is a bit of a trade-off. For instance, they now added grunts to Link's voice, which at first glance seems like, well, that's a pretty no-brainer addition, until you realize that you start hearing those grunts over and over and over again every time you fail. And since I did not beat the original game, of course, I failed a lot, because I'm not a veteran. So hearing his every time you fall in a pit was just aggravating, and just made me start calling Link names, which I hardly ever do when I play video games. So. And then, not only that, but like, you constantly hear his footsteps in the dungeon, so you're reminded of exactly how slow he's walking. And overall, it just feels like everything's very blocky and minimalistic. The world design doesn't feel particularly natural, and Koholint Island just isn't all that much fun to explore. Also, the music is really hit or miss. While there are some really standout pieces, such as Maybe Village, which apparently is not how you pronounce it, but I don't care. I think that sounds kind of cool. And the Color Dungeons theme is just absolutely mesmerizing. It's like a new take on the original Zelda dungeon theme. There are some songs that they just decided to keep a little bit too faithful to the Game Boy original, in my opinion. For example, the boss music is just a joke. It feels like one of those kind of things where you'd hear it at a disco party instead of in a Zelda game, and it just felt like, why couldn't they have gone the extra mile? Maybe, like, composed a whole new song, like they did for Fire Emblem Echoes. It just felt like they went the lazy route on most of the music, and there's very few pieces that are actually live orchestration. I felt like they went for synthesizer over real instruments, which is really a shame when you play the Ballad of the Windfish. So, there were a few things that I thought were okay about this game. The fact that warping is much more convenient than it ever was on the Game Boy was nice. Then there were also the fact that there were a lot of telephone booths scattered around, which gave you hints to nudge you in the right direction, but there wasn't really a super guide to, like, break the game. So that was nice. I really liked that. Only once did I ever have to look something up, although that could have also been because I had my best friend helping me out with the last half of the game, because some of the puzzle solving just got ridiculous. However, one standout feature that I'd like to see expounded on is the Chamber Dungeon mode, which is a brand new feature, pretty much the only thing in this game that's, like, completely built from scratch for this game. Basically, you see Dampé, which was the Gravekeeper in Ocarina of Time, and he takes dungeon rooms that you've gathered from throughout the dungeons you've already explored, and then you can create your own dungeons with a few limited parameters, like he'll tell you where to put the entrance and where the boss's lair is and stuff like that, and you'll get rewards for clearing them. And you can also make your own dungeons entirely from scratch. You can't share them online, you have to share them via an amiibo, which I guess is okay, but it seems kind of inconvenient. Like, what if you don't have any amiibos? You're gonna buy an extra amiibo just for the sake of trading dungeons? I don't know, maybe an update will fix that, but that just seems kind of silly to me. Now, you can use Zelda amiibos to get some bonuses in this mode. If you use any 5 random Zelda amiibos of any genre, doesn't matter who or what they are as long as they're Zelda related, you can get special chambers that weren't in the original, such as a chamber that has a Great Fairy in it, or a Ball and Chain Soldier. And if you have the special Link's Awakening amiibo, then you can make Shadow Link chase you through the dungeon, and whew, goodness is he hard. Speaking of which, you can also set this game to Hero Mode, in case you found the original a bit too easy. Personally, I found that this game was hard enough on normal, so I didn't bother with Hero Mode, but it's basically the same as it is in every other Zelda game. Just take double damage, and no heart drops, and not even fairy drops from the mini-boss, so getting that blue mail is certainly gonna change the game a lot, for sure. Overall, I found that this was a good remake for those that loved the original Link's Awakening, but it wasn't a very good game to begin with. So when you're trying to remake a bad game, if you're gonna make the game appeal to newcomers, it has to feel like it belongs in 2019. And this does not feel like a 2019 game. It feels like a 1993 game that just has a fresh coat of paint. And that's really unfortunate, because I know a lot of people hold Link's Awakening in high regard. But could this game attract a new generation of Zelda fans? In my personal opinion, I don't think so. If I had played this for the very first time, which actually I kind of did, most of this game I did play not knowing what to expect, and I just hated it the longer it went on. So I would say if you haven't played Link's Awakening before, I mean, it's definitely better than the Game Boy version, but not by much, because the Game Boy version wasn't very good to begin with, so I would say probably just skip this. It's not really worth your time. It doesn't really bring anything major or revolutionary to the Zelda series that hasn't been done before or better in other entries. Now, if you love Link's Awakening, would you want to go back to this remake? Heck yeah! The improvements on this game are massive. The Chamber Dungeon mode might be particularly appealing to those that think they want a Link's Awakening randomizer and can't find a way to do that. While you can't technically create dungeons from scratch, you basically rearrange dungeons, which I think is kind of cool. Also, again, the graphics and the music, for the most part, are pretty beautiful. So this is a very pretty transition from handheld to big screen. It's just not going to be a huge selling point for people that haven't played the original version. With that, I hope those of you that are still around didn't get too angry at the fact that I trashed on a beloved Zelda game, but I'm sorry, but it just didn't hold the same appeal to me as, say, A Link Between Worlds did, which was supposed to be a sequel to, or it was supposed to be a remake of A Link to the Past, then it became a sequel. So I wish maybe they would have done that, but oh well. At least for those that are tired of the Game Boy version or their copy broke, this is a great way to revisit your favorite game. It's just not the kind of game I would get if you're spoiled by games like Breath of the Wild or Link Between Worlds. With that, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment in the comment section about saying maybe there's something about this game that I underappreciated and maybe that would get me to like it more. But regardless, I want to hear your thoughts. What did I miss? What did I do wrong? Was there something I should have mentioned that would make this game worth it? And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and wait, hold it. I can hear the angry comments coming right now. Paul, why are you such a hypocrite? You hate this game so much. Does that mean you hate all handheld Zeldas? Well, no, I actually really like Minish Cap, and A Link Between Worlds is one of my favorite Zelda games ever, probably in the top 5. So I do see the value in handheld Zelda games, I just don't think this is particularly one of the best examples. Now, to sort of give you a brief reason as to why A Link Between Worlds is better, basically it took what didn't work about A Link to the Past and reworked it to fit a modern audience. Whereas this game just sort of tried to preserve the original and say like, hey guys, this is what Zelda used to be like. So with that, that's all I wanted to add. So again, I don't hate 2D Zeldas, I just wish they did more effort to make this not feel like a 90s game. Okay, now keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. And let me know if I still missed something in the comments. Bye!